When chaos increases, it slows down, it reduces inputs, it narrows focus, it simplifies. This ability separates those who survive pressure from those who collapse under it. Clear thinking is not about intelligence, it is about restraint. Restraint from reacting to everything. Restraint from trying to solve everything at once. Restraint from mistaking urgency for importance. Chaos creates false urgency. Everything feels critical. Everything feels time-sensitive. Everything demands attention. But attention is finite. If you give it to everything, nothing gets it fully. Clear thinkers protect their attention aggressively. They understand one truth. You cannot think clearly if your mind is constantly switching. Switching feels productive, but it fragments thought. Fragmented thought leads to shallow decisions. Shallow decisions compound into problems. Clarity requires depth. Depth requires focus. Focus requires elimination. This is uncomfortable because elimination means saying no. No to distractions, no to unnecessary opinions, no to tasks that feel busy but add no value. Untrained minds avoid elimination because it creates fear. What if I miss something? What if this is important? What if I choose wrong? Those questions feel responsible, but they keep the mind paralyzed. Clear thinkers accept something different. You cannot eliminate all risk, but you can eliminate noise. Noise is anything that does not change the decision. Most information does not change the decision. It just creates anxiety. A trained mind asks a simple question. What is the one thing that matters most right now? Not 5 things. Not a list. 1. That question cuts through chaos. Once the priority is clear, everything else becomes secondary. Secondary does not mean irrelevant. It means not now. This sequencing is powerful. Chaos overwhelms people because they treat everything as simultaneous. Clear thinkers operate sequentially. One action at a time, one decision at a time, one problem at a time. This reduces cognitive load. Less cognitive load means better judgment. Judgment is what chaos tests. Under pressure, the brain seeks shortcuts. It relies on emotion, bias, habit. Without training, those shortcuts lead to predictable mistakes. Clear thinkers slow the process just enough to avoid those traps. They don't rush to conclusions. They don't fill gaps with assumptions. They ask fewer, better questions. Questions like, what do I actually know? What am I assuming? What can I control right now? These questions ground thinking. Grounded thinking stabilizes action. But another key to clarity in chaos is emotional regulation. Strong emotions distort perception. Fear magnifies threats. Anger narrows options. Excitement hides risk. If emotions run unchecked, clarity disappears. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means preventing emotion from dominating interpretation. A trained mind acknowledges feeling without allowing it to define reality. I feel pressure, but this is manageable. I feel uncertainty, but I don't need to decide yet. This internal language matters. Language shapes perception. Perception shapes decision. When your internal language is dramatic, your thinking becomes dramatic. When your internal language is grounded, your thinking stabilizes. Chaos also tests patience. When situations are unclear, the urge to act increases. Action feels like control, but premature action often worsens chaos. Clear thinkers understand timing. They know when to act and when to wait. Waiting is not passive. It is active observation. Observation reveals patterns. Patterns clarify direction. Rushing skips this step. Many mistakes are not due to bad intent or lack of effort, but due to acting before clarity formed. Clear thinking respects the process. It allows ambiguity without panic. This tolerance for ambiguity is rare. Most people crave certainty. They want answers now. When certainty is unavailable, they invent it. They convince themselves of narratives that reduce discomfort. Those narratives feel comforting but lead to error. Clear thinkers resist this temptation. They remain neutral longer. Neutrality creates accuracy. Accuracy improves outcomes. Another important element is mental decluttering. Chaos outside often mirrors clutter inside. Too many unresolved tasks. Too many unfinished thoughts. Too many open loops. Each open loop drains attention. Clear minds close loops deliberately. They write things down. They externalize information. They don't rely on memory under stress. This frees mental space. Space is essential for clarity. When the mind is overloaded, even simple decisions feel heavy. Reducing load restores agility. Clarity also depends on values. When values are unclear, decisions become complicated. When values are clear, decisions simplify. A trained mind knows its priorities. What matters, what doesn't, what is non-negotiable. These internal rules act as filters. They remove options automatically. Without filters, everything feels equally important. With filters, choices narrow quickly. Chaos loses its power. Clear thinking is also supported by physical state. Lack of sleep, poor nutrition, chronic stress. These degrade clarity significantly. Mental training includes respecting the body, not perfectly, but consistently. A stable body supports a stable mind. Ignoring this creates unnecessary chaos. Clear thinkers don't rely on willpower alone. They build environments that support clarity. They reduce distractions. They create routines. They protect focus. This is not rigidity. It is design. Design prevents chaos from overwhelming the mind. Over time, clarity becomes habitual. You notice chaos earlier. You respond more deliberately. You make fewer impulsive decisions. Others may still feel overwhelmed. You feel steady, not because you know more, but because you think better. Clear thinking does not eliminate difficulty. It makes difficulty navigable. It allows you to move forward without losing direction. In chaotic situations, the calmest mind usually wins, not because it is faster, but because it sees clearly. And clarity is one of the strongest advantages you can train. Chapter 7. Train your self-talk. The voice in your head never stops speaking. It narrates your actions. It explains your failures. It predicts your future. Most people never question that voice. They assume it tells the truth. That assumption quietly shapes their entire life. Your self-talk is not commentary. It is instruction. It tells your nervous system how to respond. It tells your mind what to focus on. It tells your body whether to tighten or relax. If that voice is weak, chaotic, or hostile, your behavior will follow. Training your self-talk is not about being positive. It is about being precise. Untrained self-talk is emotional. It exaggerates. It generalizes. It dramatizes. I always mess this up. This is impossible. I'm not built for this. Those phrases feel natural, but they poison action. They collapse effort before it begins. A trained mind does not speak in absolutes. It speaks in instructions. This is uncomfortable, not dangerous. This requires patience. Focus on the next step. That difference matters. The mind follows language. If the language is unstable, the mind becomes unstable. Most people try to change behavior without changing the internal language driving it. That rarely works. Behavior obeys identity. Identity is reinforced by self-talk. If you repeatedly tell yourself you are reactive, you will react. If you repeatedly tell yourself you are disciplined, you will look for disciplined behavior. This is not affirmation, it is conditioning. Your mind believes what you repeat, especially under stress. Stress lowers filters. It reveals default programming. That's why training self-talk must happen before pressure arrives. You don't rise to positive thinking under stress. You fall to rehearsed language. Untrained self-talk is often inherited. phrases picked up from parents, teachers, peers, past failures. They sound familiar, so they feel true. But familiarity is not accuracy. Accuracy requires intention. The first step in training self-talk is noticing tone, not content. Tone. Is your inner voice harsh, impatient, defeated, urgent? Tone sets emotional direction. A harsh tone creates tension. An urgent tone creates panic. A defeated tone drains energy. A trained inner voice is neutral and firm. Not kind, not cruel. Clear. Clear language creates clear action. Instead of saying, "This is overwhelming," a trained voice says, "This is complex. Break it down." Instead of saying, "I can't deal with this," it says, "Handle the next requirement." These shifts seem small. They are not. They redirect attention. Self-talk tells your mind where to look. Dramatic language looks for escape. Instructional language looks for execution. Execution builds momentum. Another common mistake is using self-talk to evaluate worth. I should be better by now. Others handle this better than me. Comparison weakens self-command. A trained mind separates performance from identity. You don't insult yourself for mistakes. You correct behavior. Correction moves forward. Insult stalls progress. Internal insults do not motivate. They exhaust. The mind cannot lead itself if it is constantly under attack. Training self-talk means becoming your own authority, not your own critic. Authority sets standards. Criticism creates fear, and fear distorts thinking. Strong self-talk is directive, not emotional. It does not ask, "How do I feel?" It asks, "What is required?" Requirements are objective. Feelings are not. This is especially important during setbacks. After a failure, untrained self-talk spirals. I knew this would happen. Why do I always do this? What's wrong with me? Those questions have no useful answers. A trained mind asks different questions. What failed? What can be adjusted? What stays the same? These questions create learning. Learning prevents repetition. Repetition without learning is discouragement. Learning without emotion is progress. Self-talk also determines resilience. When things go wrong, the inner voice either escalates or stabilizes the situation. Escalating language adds pressure. Stabilizing language restores control. "I'm behind" creates urgency. "I have time to choose correctly" creates space. Space allows better decisions. A trained mind protects space internally, even when time is limited externally. Another element of self-talk training is consistency. Many people speak to themselves differently depending on mood. Encouraging one day, defeated the next. That inconsistency creates instability. A trained inner voice is consistent. It does not fluctuate wildly. It does not negotiate standards. It sounds the same on good days and bad days. This reliability builds trust. When you trust your inner voice, you act faster. You stop doubting yourself mid-action. You stop seeking external reassurance. That independence is strength. Self-talk also shapes how you interpret others. If your internal voice is defensive, you will perceive threats everywhere. If it is grounded, you will perceive information. This affects relationships deeply. Many conflicts are fueled by internal narratives, not actual events. Training self-talk reduces unnecessary conflict by reducing misinterpretation. You stop assuming intent. You respond to facts. That clarity improves communication. Another overlooked aspect is silence. Trained self-talk knows when not to speak. Not every thought deserves airtime. You don't need to comment on every sensation, every doubt, every impulse. Silence creates focus. An overactive inner narrator creates distraction. A trained mind uses language sparingly. It speaks when direction is needed. It stays quiet when action is clear. This restraint conserves energy. Energy saved internally is energy available externally. Over time, trained self-talk becomes automatic. You no longer correct every phrase consciously. The tone shifts naturally. This is the result of repetition. You replace weak phrases not once, but repeatedly. You interrupt exaggeration again and again. You choose